What's up guys, the Strong Boys 19 here. This is going to be the next album to review for another 2021 album. And as you can see, I'm going to be talking about the newest album from the band Kings of Leon, entitled When You See Yourself. Now this is their latest album in the discography, and needless to say, I personally do not really have a guilty pleasure for this band because I actually really do enjoy some Kings of Leon albums from time to time. And hailing from California, these guys had been making music into the genre in mainly the alternative rock style type of scene. And with this new output of originality on these kinds of sounds that the guys have been writing, I was interested and very, very curious to discover this band once again, and I do own some of their albums in the collection, so they were one of the bands in that type of scene that I really do enjoy. So with this latest album, musically and also onto the songwriting aspects, they were really going forward into something a bit of like a different and separate direction, clean vocals, and a lot of these pretty crunchy, distorting guitar sounds, and with a lot of these anthemic hits. But I think with this album, they were pushing things in a bit of a diversity kind of feel when I think about these tracks for what they are worth, because I think with each album, these guys are one of those examples where they make music and release albums in, a craft of their own. And that's what I personally do enjoy for some time on Kings of Leon's music. But I think with this particular record, they were finding things into making things very, very melodic and something very soft. But I do enjoy a lot of the majority into this album. Musically, on a lot of the tracks to this album alone, is pretty much on a very consistent and a prominent way of direction. The production is a very big thing onto the album. There's a lot of these various guitar sounds to a lot of the drenching of reverb, but as well as the really big and dominating sound of the band here, a lot of the songs to each other do deliver in their own separate characteristics. The opening song of When You See Yourself, the title track, a brief guitar introduction of clean guitars and the drums starts the anticipating build-up, but onto its progression, it does continue a lot onto the same mellow tone, which does flow very nicely on the majority of the track. It is a pretty neat opening track to some of the tracks that I really enjoy on this album, like The Bandit, for example. It's a very steady, mid-tempo-ish kind of sound, very driving sound onto the guitar's crunch tone. I do like this one a lot. It's actually one of my personal high favorites onto the album. I do enjoy the separate sounds of the multiple recorded guitar layerings, and it's just a very well placed and arranged piece of instrumentation to another song that I like a lot as well, one of the later tracks, which is Echoing. The positive and commanding major keyed sound of this song was pretty powerful, and the drums to this track march on very consistently, attacking sound on the sound of the band. The rest of the band are very, very crafty and what they're worth with each of their talents, and as well as with the vocal arrangements go, the vocals are really, really good for what they are, innocent and soft and somber, I guess emotional sounding on various parts, and also onto one of the great tracks that I like on Supermarket, which is one of the very rhythmic tracks, especially onto the tight syncopation of the bass to the drums and the guitars. Very well balanced, but not only that, the great blending and the excellent combination of vocal harmonies That's one of the really good things about this album as well. Can have their own presence. There are some sounds of incorporating synthesizers, which can take things in a bit of like a very moodier, and I guess I would say this a little bit of an ambient-ish kind of tinge to provide the instrumentations. And I think with some tracks like A Wave, for example, where the moodiness just streams on very naturally, and I do really like these additional effects from panning the guitars, sound effects in the background, and as well as with the multiple different ranges from the low and high registers on the vocals, because there are some performances on the album where there are some really dramatic to some beautiful and soft moments, especially on instrumentals that can be on a bit of a balladry kind of side. Take, for example, like Claire and Eddie, which is the main acoustic number on the album. It's the most acoustic-driven number, but it's folky and it's so beautifully arranged. It can be delivering at a bit of a country vibe at the same time. Again, on the vocals, which adds in that great blend. And that's another really good track. If I have to find some weaknesses, though, onto the album, there are some moments where I think some of the songwriting and structures can be very repetitively similar. Not that there's anything wrong with that so much, but they would have been, delivering things at a not a very experimental and more or less on a almost alike way. There are a few moments where I don't find some of the stuff to be that memorable. Despite that, I think with the rest of the consistent flow and the tonality onto mellowness on this album that a lot of this provides, this is a very, very well done album for the band. And I am curious to also know what you guys personally think of this album in the comments down below. So with all of these words being said, I'm going to give this album, When You See Yourself, by Kings of Leon, I would say an 8 out of 10. So that's personally all I would like to say on this particular album. And, like I said, let me know what you think of the record in the comments. Well, thank you guys for watching. And as always, I will keep you guys posted for more videos in the near future.